The unexpected visitor. Franklin Reed tossed his graduation cap onto his bed with a sigh of relief. 4 years of college finally behind him, and now a summer of freedom before starting his music production internship in the fall. The small apartment he shared with his mother in New Harbor felt especially quiet this afternoon. Diana Reed was working late at the xenobiology lab again. As he strummed a few chords on his guitar, the doorbell rang. Franklin ignored it at first, assuming it was another package delivery. When it rang again, more insistently, he set his guitar aside and trudged to the door. "Coming, coming," he muttered, swinging the door open. He froze. Standing in the doorway was the most striking being he had ever seen. Nearly 7 feet tall, with shimmering teal skin that seemed to ripple with subtle patterns beneath the surface. Her eyes were large and almond-shaped, shifting between gold and emerald green. Her head was adorned with what looked like delicate tendrils that floated slightly in a non-existent breeze. "Franklin Reed," she said, her voice melodic with an electronic undertone. "You have reached maturity. I have come to claim you." Franklin blinked. Who are you?" "I am Ambassador Neva Zorthel of the Visidian Conclave. I shared dwelling space with Diana Reed during her academic pursuits at MIT's Interspecies Exchange Program. You may verify my identity." Franklin's mind raced. His mother had mentioned an alien roommate from her college days, shown him holographs of a tall, teal-skinned being holding him as a baby, but that had been 22 years ago. "Okay, but what do you mean, claim me?" he asked, still blocking the doorway. Neva produced a crystalline tablet. "I have filed the formal bonding request with both Earth's Department of Interspecies Relations and the Visidian High Council. Your DNA signature has been on record since your birth when I registered my intent." "My what?" "My mother agreed to this?" Diana Reed found my declaration amusing. "I believe she misinterpreted formal Visidian bonding protocol as what you humans call humor. A common cross-cultural misunderstanding." Before Franklin could respond, a sleek black government vehicle pulled up outside. 2 people in dark suits approached, carrying identification badges. "Mr. Reed?" "Agent Hoffman, Department of Interspecies Relations," said the woman. "This is Agent Torres. We're here to facilitate Ambassador Neva's diplomatic accommodation request." "Diplomatic what now?" Franklin stammered. "Sir, Ambassador Neva has filed all the appropriate paperwork for a cultural immersion stay as part of the pre-bonding ritual. As per the Interstellar Diplomatic Accord of 2041, we're required to ensure proper arrangements." Franklin's phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Urgent. Call me. Alien diplomat claiming connection to you?" "This is insane," Franklin muttered. "I can't just bond with someone I don't know." Neva tilted her head, tendrils swaying gracefully. "You have known me since infancy, Franklin Reed. I held you 17 minutes after your birth. I observed your first attempts at bipedal movement. I composed melodies that Diana played to soothe your infant distress." Agent Torres cleared his throat. "Mr. Reed, while no one is forcing you into an interspecies marriage, Ambassador Neva's request for the traditional 3-month compatibility assessment period is protected under interstellar law. Refusal could trigger a diplomatic incident." Franklin's apartment suddenly felt impossibly small as Neva ducked her head to step inside, her presence filling the space with a subtle scent like ozone and cinnamon. "I have brought traditional bonding gifts," she announced, gesturing to floating containers that hovered into the apartment behind her. "And I look forward to our cohabitation period." Franklin watched in stunned silence as government agents began installing strange devices in his living room, while his apparent alien fiancée explored his apartment with elegant, measured movements. His quiet post-graduation summer had just collided with interstellar politics, and Franklin Reed had no idea how to escape the cosmic arrangement he never agreed to. Reluctant cohabitation. Franklin woke to the sound of strange, crystalline music drifting through the apartment. For a moment he thought he'd dreamed the entire bizarre encounter, but the faint blue glow emanating from beneath his bedroom door confirmed yesterday's reality. Ambassador Neva Zorthul was indeed living in his home. He found her in the kitchen, her tall frame bent awkwardly over the too small human stove. She wore what appeared to be standard Earth clothes, jeans and a button-up shirt, though they fit her elongated limbs oddly. The tendrils on her head pulsed with soft light as she manipulated something in a floating bowl without touching it. "Good morning, Franklin Reed," she said without turning around. "I have prepared a traditional Visidian morning meal. It is compatible with human digestive systems." "Just Franklin is fine," he mumbled, cautiously approaching the counter where a bowl of what looked like iridescent purple oatmeal awaited him. "Where's my mom?" Diana Reed departed for the xenobiology laboratory approximately 43 minutes ago. She suggested we use this time to sort things out. The slight pause in Neva's speech pattern suggested she was directly quoting his mother. Franklin sighed and reluctantly tried the purple food. To his surprise, it tasted like warm blueberries and honey with a hint of something unidentifiable but pleasant. "This is actually good," he admitted. "Your pleasure receptors are functioning as anticipated," Neva replied with what might have been pride. After breakfast, Franklin called the university's legal department where his friend Juniper worked. As an intern, he explained his situation in hushed tones from his bedroom. "Let me get this straight," Juniper said, barely containing her laughter. "Your mom's alien college roommate has shown up with interstellar marriage paperwork, and now government agents are making you live with her for 3 months? It's not funny, June. There has to be some legal way out of this. I'll look into it, but interspecies law is complicated. The Visidians were among the first to establish diplomatic relations with Earth. Their cultural practices get a lot of deference." After hanging up, Franklin found Neva examining his music equipment with curious eyes. "You create auditory experiences," she observed. "I produce music, yeah. I'm starting an internship at Rhythm Records in the fall. On Visid, music creation is considered an intimate act. Those who share harmonic resonance are considered highly compatible." Her skin rippled with patterns that seemed to match the beat of the music, playing softly from his speakers. "Look, Neva," Franklin said, steeling himself for the conversation they needed to have. "I'm sure you're great, but on Earth people choose who they want to be with. We date, we get to know each other. We don't get engaged to people we just met." "We have not just met," Neva countered. "I have followed your development since infancy. Your mother shared your educational achievements, musical compositions, and health records as per our agreement." "Wait, what agreement?" "When I first held you as an infant, your neurological patterns synchronized with my bioluminescent frequencies, a rare occurrence between species. I registered a formal interest in future bonding, and Diana agreed to keep me informed of your development." "So, my mom's been sending you updates about me my entire life?" Franklin ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "And you never thought to, introduce yourself before showing up with marriage papers?" "Visidian tradition dictates that contact only begins once maturity is reached. I respected your developmental autonomy." Franklin paced the small living room, accidentally knocking into one of Neva's floating containers. It emitted a soft chime but didn't fall. "This is crazy. I have plans, a career starting. I can't just bond with someone from another planet." Neva's tendrils drooped slightly. "The assessment period is merely for compatibility confirmation. You are not obligated to complete the bonding ritual without consent." "Then why are there government agents outside my apartment?" "Ambassador Zorthul's diplomatic status requires security protocols," came a voice from the doorway. Agent Hoffman stood there with a tablet. "Mr. Reed, we need to discuss the parameters of the cultural immersion period." For the next hour, Franklin listened in growing disbelief as Hoffman outlined the expected cultural exchanges and bonding activities that would fulfill the requirements of interstellar diplomatic protocol. "And if I refuse to participate?" he finally asked. "Then Ambassador Neva would have grounds to file a formal complaint of cultural disrespect, potentially triggering a review of Earth's standing in the Galactic Cooperative." As Hoffman left, Franklin collapsed onto the sofa beside Neva, who sat with perfect posture, her long fingers folded in her lap. 3 months, he said, staring at the ceiling. I have to do this for 3 months? I have waited 22 years, Neva responded, quietly. 3 months seems a reasonable compromise. Franklin glanced at her, noticing for the first time a hint of vulnerability in her alien features. He wondered what exactly he had gotten into, or rather, what his mother had gotten him into, and how he was going to survive sharing his small apartment with a 7-foot teal alien who apparently had plans for their future together. Cultural exchanges. 2 weeks into their compatibility assessment period, Franklin found himself in the peculiar position of explaining human dating rituals to Neva over coffee at Starlight Cafe. The other patrons had mostly stopped staring at the tall teal alien, though occasional newcomers would do double takes. So humans exchange fluid-contaminated plant matter before deciding on genetic compatibility? Neva asked, referring to the couple sharing a milkshake at a nearby table. Franklin choked on his latte. No, I mean flowers aren't about genetic testing. They're symbolic, and sharing food is about intimacy, not contamination. Fascinating. Neva's tendrils swayed thoughtfully as she made notes on her crystalline tablet. And these dates determine if procreation would be advisable? Not exactly. Franklin felt his face warming. Dating is about getting to know someone, seeing if you enjoy their company, if you share values and goals. After his initial shock had worn off, Franklin had decided to approach the situation as a cultural exchange rather than a forced engagement. Juniper's legal research had confirmed what Agent Hoffman said. Refusing to participate could trigger diplomatic consequences. The least problematic path forward was simply completing the 3 months. Would you classify our current activity as a date? Neva asked. Franklin paused. They were sitting in a cafe talking and drinking coffee. By technical definition, I guess it is, kind of. Neva's skin rippled with pleased patterns. Excellent. I shall document this as our first official courtship ritual. Franklin rolled his eyes but couldn't help smiling. Neva's earnest approach to human customs had become almost endearing. The previous week, she'd attempted to prepare a traditional Earth dinner of spaghetti and meatballs, resulting in pasta stuck to the ceiling and tomato sauce in places Franklin didn't know sauce could reach. Your facial expressions indicate amusement, Neva observed. Is my interpretation of human courtship humorous? A little, Franklin admitted. But it's okay. You're trying. As they walked home, Franklin found himself explaining music theory to Neva, who absorbed information with remarkable speed. At the apartment, he showed her his latest composition on his keyboard. May I? She asked, gesturing to the instrument. Franklin nodded, curious. Neva positioned her long fingers over the keys and began to play. The melody that emerged was unlike anything he'd heard, hauntingly beautiful with harmonies that seemed impossible on a standard keyboard. That's incredible, he breathed when she finished. What is that? A traditional Vasidian bonding melody. It translates poorly to Earth instruments, but the emotional resonance remains. Franklin felt something shift between them. Could you teach me? For the next several hours, they sat side by side at the keyboard, Neva guiding his hands through alien chord progressions. Her skin occasionally brushed against his, sending strange but not unpleasant tingles up his arm. Your neural patterns are synchronizing with the melodic structure, she said softly. It is rare for non-Vasidians to achieve such resonance. The next day, Franklin took Neva to the beach, her first experience with an Earth ocean. She stood at the shoreline, tendrils flowing in the sea breeze, expression awestruck. Your planet contains such beauty, she whispered as waves lapped at her feet. On Vasid, water exists only in controlled environments. No oceans at all. Our atmosphere cannot sustain open water. This, she gestured to the horizon, would be considered a treasure beyond measure. Franklin watched her experiencing simple joys he'd taken for granted his entire life. For the first time, he wondered what it would be like to see Earth through alien eyes, to find wonder in the ordinary. That evening, as they walked along the shore collecting shells which Neva catalogued with scientific precision, Franklin's phone buzzed with a message from his mother. "How's it going with Ambassador Hard Eyes?" He glanced at Neva, who was crouched down examining a starfish with childlike fascination, her teal skin glowing softly in the fading light. "Better than expected," he typed back. Later that night, Franklin found Neva on the apartment balcony, gazing at the stars. "That one." She pointed to a faint star barely visible through the city lights. "That is my home system." "Do you miss it?" Franklin asked, leaning on the railing beside her. "Visitians do not experience missing as humans do. We acknowledge separation without emotional distress." She paused. "However, I find myself experiencing something unprecedented when I think of returning without you." The statement hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging the implications. Instead, Franklin pointed out Earth constellations, while Neva shared stories of worlds he could barely imagine. When their hands accidentally touched on the railing, neither pulled away immediately. Franklin felt the strange electric tingle again, stronger this time, and wondered if this was the neurological synchronization Neva had mentioned. Against all expectations, Franklin Reed was beginning to enjoy the company of his alien almost fiancée, and the realization both intrigued and terrified him. Interstellar complications. Franklin woke to the sound of raised voices, one melodic and familiar, the other deeper with the same electronic undertones but distinctly male. He stumbled from his bedroom to find Neva standing rigidly in the living room, confronting another Visitian. This newcomer stood even taller than Neva, his skin a deep midnight blue with silver patterns rippling beneath the surface. Unlike Neva's flowing tendrils, his were shorter and stiffer, reminding Franklin of a crown of thorns. "Franklin Reed," Neva said without taking her eyes off the visitor. "This is Xenix Vrail, second emissary to the Galactic Cooperative and member of the Visitian High Council. Your presence was requested at the Council Summit, Ambassador Zorthul," Xenox stated coldly. "Instead, we find you engaging in unauthorized bonding rituals with this." His silver eyes flicked dismissively. "Over, Franklin. Primitive species." Franklin crossed his arms. "Nice to meet you too." "My bonding intentions were properly filed and approved," Neva countered. "The assessment period is protected under Interstellar Code 347B. The Council has revoked approval." Xenix produced a floating document that pulsed with angry red symbols. "You are ordered to terminate this assessment and return to Vasid immediately." Franklin felt a strange twist in his stomach. After 6 weeks of living with Neva, the thought of her sudden departure was unexpectedly painful. On what grounds? Neva's voice had taken on a dangerous edge Franklin had never heard before. Her tendrils were now completely still. A sign he'd learned indicated intense focus or anger. Political necessity. The Aurelian Federation has proposed an alliance through bonding. You are to assess compatibility with Ambassador Krell's offspring instead. An arranged political bonding. Neva's skin flashed with patterns Franklin recognized as outrage. The Council knows such practices were abolished in the Great Reform. Outside the apartment window, Franklin noticed 2 black government vehicles had pulled up. Agent Hoffman emerged from one, accompanied by what appeared to be higher-ranking officials. "Your personal preferences are irrelevant," Xenox stated. "The alliance with Aurelian is vital to our strategic interests." The doorbell rang. Franklin opened it to find Agent Hoffman looking uncharacteristically tense. "Mr. Reed, we have a diplomatic situation," she said quietly. "The Visitian Council has sent a formal request to terminate Ambassador Neva's assessment period. Our superiors are concerned about potential repercussions." Behind her, a stern-looking woman in a formal diplomatic uniform stepped forward. "Under Secretary Chen, Department of Interstellar Relations. We need to speak with Ambassador Zorthul immediately." As the officials entered, Franklin caught Neva's eye across the room. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked uncertain. The next hour passed in a blur of diplomatic jargon and thinly veiled threats. The Visitian Council had apparently decided that Neva's personal project with a human was less valuable than securing an alliance with a powerful neighboring system, Earth officials seemed eager to avoid any conflict with either alien power. "This is ridiculous," Franklin finally interrupted. "You can't just trade people like political chess pieces." Undersecretary Chen gave him a warning look. "Mr. Reed, this is a complex diplomatic matter." "No, it's not," Franklin insisted. "Neva filed all the proper paperwork. We're in the middle of an officially recognized assessment period. You can't just cancel it because a better offer came along." Xenox turned his silver gaze on Franklin. "You speak as though you have authority in this matter, human. You do not." "Actually," came a new voice from the doorway, "he does." Diana Reed stood there, tablet in hand, with Juniper beside her clutching a stack of legal documents. "Mom?" Franklin blinked in surprise. Diana strode confidently into the room. "As Franklin's legal guardian when the initial bonding interest was registered, I have copies of all original agreements, including the clause stating that once an assessment period begins, it cannot be terminated except by mutual consent of both parties." Juniper stepped forward, handing documents to Agent Hoffman. "I've highlighted the relevant sections of both Earth and Vasidian law. The interspecies legal precedent is quite clear." Xenox's tendrils bristled. "This is an internal Vasidian matter, with an Earth citizen involved," Diana countered, "making it an interspecies matter governed by the Accords of 2041, Section 12, Paragraph 3. No diplomatic arrangement involving citizens of signatory species may be unilaterally altered once formally commenced." The room fell silent as officials from both planets reviewed the documents. Franklin moved to stand beside Neva, whose skin had begun to emit a soft glow he'd never seen before. "You wish to continue the assessment?" she asked quietly. Franklin surprised himself with the certainty of his answer. "Yes." "Undersecretary," Chen finally looked up from the documents. "The human's mother is correct. The assessment period must be allowed to continue to its natural conclusion." Xenox's skin darkened with rage. "The Council will not accept this." "Then perhaps," Neva suggested coolly, "the Council should reconsider its diplomatic priorities before threatening two sovereign powers simultaneously." After more heated discussion, the officials finally departed, leaving Franklin, Neva, Diana, and Juniper alone in the apartment. "That was amazing." Franklin hugged his mother. "How did you know to come?" "Neva contacted me when Xenox arrived," Diana explained. "I've suspected the Council might try something like this. They've never approved of Neva's interest in Earth culture." Juniper gathered her legal documents with a grin. "I told you interspecies law was complicated. Good thing your mom kept those original agreements." After they left, Franklin turned to Neva, whose composed diplomatic facade had finally dropped, revealing what looked like exhaustion. "You chose to continue," she said softly, tendrils moving slowly. "Why?" Franklin took her hand, feeling the now familiar electric tingle where their skin met. "I'm not done getting to know you yet." That night, as they sat together on the balcony watching the stars, Franklin realized with startling clarity that somewhere along the way, the alien who had arrived with marriage papers had become someone he couldn't imagine sending away, hearts across the universe. The morning of the final day of their 3-month assessment period dawned bright and clear. Franklin stood on the balcony, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise paint the sky in hues that reminded him of the patterns that rippled beneath Neva's skin when she was happy. 12 weeks ago, he had been a recent graduate with simple plans for a quiet summer before starting his internship. Now he was contemplating a future that stretched across star systems. Inside the apartment, Neva was preparing for the official conclusion ceremony. A small delegation from both Earth and Vasid would arrive to witness their decision. Continue toward formal bonding or part ways. The political tensions with the Vasidian Council had subsided somewhat after several diplomatic exchanges, though Xenox had made his disapproval abundantly clear before departing Earth. Franklin's phone buzzed, with a message from Juniper. "Big day! Whatever you decide, I've got the legal paperwork ready for either outcome." He smiled, grateful for his friend's support. Over the past weeks, he'd confided in her about his growing feelings for Neva, how what had begun as an awkward diplomatic arrangement had evolved into something he couldn't have imagined. "You appear contemplative." Neva's melodic voice came from behind him. He turned to find her dressed in formal Visidian attire, a flowing garment that seemed to be made of liquid starlight, shifting and shimmering with her movements. Her tendrils were adorned with delicate silver ornaments that chimed softly when she moved. "Compatibility. Are you nervous?" he asked. "Visidians do not experience pre-decision anxiety as humans do," she replied, then added with a hint of humor he'd come to recognize. "However, my biometric readings are currently unstable." "Mine too," he laughed. They had spent the previous night talking until dawn, weighing the practical realities of an interspecies relationship. Neva's diplomatic duties would require travel between worlds. Franklin's music career was just beginning on Earth. There would be biological challenges, cultural misunderstandings, and the simple daily difficulties of being from entirely different planets. Yet when they played music together, his human compositions blending with her Visidian harmonies, everything else seemed to fade away. The doorbell rang precisely at noon. Agent Hoffman led a small procession into the apartment, Under Secretary Chen and 2 junior diplomats representing Earth, and a Visidian official whom Neva greeted respectfully as Elder Thalix. Diana arrived moments later, giving Franklin an encouraging smile. "We are gathered to witness the conclusion of the formal assessment period between Ambassador Neva Zorthul of Vasid and Franklin Reed of Earth," Elder Thalix announced, his deep voice resonating throughout the room. "Both parties will now state their decision." The formality of the moment struck Franklin suddenly. 3 months ago, this would have seemed absurd, an alien bureaucratic procedure forced upon him. Now, with Neva beside him, it felt like the most important moment of his life. Under Secretary Chen stepped forward. "As per protocol, the decisions must be made separately and then revealed simultaneously. Mr. Reed, please follow Agent Hoffman to record your decision. Ambassador Zorthul, Elder Thalix will assist you." In the privacy of his bedroom, Franklin faced the recording device Hoffman had set up. "State your name and decision," she instructed professionally, though he caught a hint of a supportive smile. "Franklin Reed," he said clearly. "I choose to continue toward formal bonding with Neva Zorthul." When they returned to the living room, Neva stood waiting, her expression unreadable in the way it always became when she adopted her diplomatic persona. Franklin's heart raced as Elder Thalix produced a floating crystalline sphere. "The decisions have been recorded. They will now be revealed," the Elder announced. The sphere rose between them, pulsing with light, then split into 2 halves. Inside each half, a holographic word appeared. In Franklin's half, "Continue." In Neva's, the Visidian symbol he had learned meant the same. The room remained silent for a moment before Diana broke protocol with a delighted laugh. "Well, that's that then." Neva's formal demeanor dissolved, her skin illuminating with patterns of joy as her tendrils swayed happily. "The assessment is successful," she stated, though her voice carried more emotion than Franklin had ever heard. Under Secretary Chen cleared her throat. "As the first official human-Visidian bonding, there will be certain diplomatic considerations, which can be addressed later," Elder Thalix interrupted with surprising warmth. "Today is for celebration." As the officials prepared the necessary documentation, Franklin pulled Neva to the balcony for a moment of privacy. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "Your world, your career." "Franklin Reed," she said, taking both his hands in hers, the synchronization between them stronger than ever. "In all my studies of Earth culture, I discovered a concept that Visidians lack: serendipity. The fortunate accident of meeting you as an infant, the neurological compatibility no science could have predicted, these are not random events but patterns in the cosmic fabric." "So we're what? Cosmic destiny?" He smiled. "We are," she replied seriously. "Statistically improbable but empirically undeniable." Franklin laughed. That might be the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Inside, Diana was already discussing plans for a ceremony that would honor both Earth and Visidian traditions. Agent Hoffman was explaining to a bewildered elder, Thalix the human concept of bachelor parties. There will be challenges, Neva acknowledged, looking toward the star that contained her home world. Practical matters of biology, residence, cultural integration. And political ones, Franklin added, thinking of the Visidian Council's disapproval. Not everyone will understand. True, she agreed, but perhaps understanding is not required. From everyone, only from us. As the sun reached its zenith, casting golden light across the city, Franklin pulled Neva close. Their foreheads touched in the Visidian gesture of intimacy he had learned to appreciate. So what happens now? He asked. Neva's tendrils gently wrapped around his wrists, creating a circuit of energy between them. Now, Franklin Reed, we begin writing our story, not just as human and Visidian, but as pioneers of something new. In the apartment behind them, two worlds negotiated the details of their unprecedented union. But on the balcony, beneath the same sun that warmed worlds across the galaxy, Franklin and Neva simply existed in the rare and precious space where difference became harmony, where an unexpected visitor from the stars had transformed into the most important being in his universe.